kind of a community evening. So we're going to, myself and Andrea and Bob are going to collaborate and share what we have felt is close to us in the practice this season, what feels like an essential part of the practice, or in essence, kind of a heart of the practice for us, and how it connects to this season. And so Andrea is going to offer the refuges, and I'm going to lead a meditation. And then Bob is going to offer his reflections. Andrea will offer her reflections. I'll offer mine, and then Bob will dedicate the merit, and we'll have announcements. And so we'll bring our candles in right. Let's do it like right now. So just anyone who has a candle to share this lighting in the midst of the darkness, this lighting of our own hearts, the light in the midst of this beautiful winter, the light of the practice in our hearts, just holding this light, this light of understanding, and just holding it all for each other. And so Andrea will take us into the refuges.
Yeah, I thought for the refuges, I'd just offer a few reflections from this past Sunday. I was sitting in a morning little meditation session that Susie Harrington was leading, who many of us know. And one of her questions was, what supports joy and delight? And one of the answers that she gave us was the confidence that we can find when we settle into the refuges. And so many of us are familiar with the refuges, the refuge of the Buddha, and that's the historical figure, but also this possibility of waking up and finding delight in the stories of hope that are around us. And one of the poems that Susie read in this context was one of my favorites from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It says, "O nobly born, O you of glorious origin, remember your radiant true nature, the essence of mind. Trust it, return to it. It is home." And so that's sort of the joy in our own inner goodness that we can bring out and find some light in times of like this dark winter. And then there's the refuge in the Dharma, which is contacting the truth of things. We're not denying the truth of suffering, and we find joy in not resisting what's happening. We meet what's happening with equanimity and with love. And so for me, a poem that expresses this is a little poem by John Donahue called Fluent. It says, "I would like to live as the river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding." And then the third refuge is the refuge in the Sangha, where we celebrate and find joy in the support of our community. The community here tonight, and those who have practiced around the world and across time. We always bring in and acknowledge the community of nature. We can find joy in the community of our ancestors, whether blood ancestors, spirit ancestors, or land ancestors. And here, as part of Treaty 6, we like to recognize the people who have stewarded the lands for millennia, the Cree, the Nakota, the Dakota, the Saulteaux people, and the Métis Nation. And there's a reflection from Richard Wagamese from his book Embers that kind of brings in this quality of being with our community. And when I just finish reading this poem, I'll send it over to Jeanne to lead us into meditation. So consider this an invitation as we approach meditation. In the dark depths of winter nights, spirits slumber too, and allow their stories to be told. These are the storytelling moons. Elders and storytellers who have been given tales to carry speak softly, reverentially, and the people hear them. The people do not merely listen, they hear. To hear is to have a spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical reaction to the words. Sometimes, at very special times, you have all four reactions and are changed forever. Share stories. Fill cold nights with the warmth of connections, your relationships. Hear each other and be made more. That's the power of storytelling.
So we can settle into this deep listening as we settle into our meditation, and sensing deeply, listening deeply into our own being. Sensing with our whole body, hearing, listening with our whole body, letting the body just rest and settle into the support of the cushion or the chair. Healing and feeling, hearing, I should say, and feeling in a felt way this body. Listening into the experience of what it's like to be here now, sitting. Sensing into this deep listening into our own experience here together. Sensing the body sitting and how it is we know we're here now, these physical sensations. One of the ways of turning towards or cultivating the gift of quiet joy is simply by looking for it in our experience. Sensing to see if there's any quiet kind of pleasantness simply in being supported by the chair. Letting the body rest back. And as we're resting, just being aware also of resting within this Sangha, within this community. Sensing if there's any quiet joy in feeling the connection of the community, their support for your practice. Noticing the breath within the body, this gentle ebb and flow. Just listening deeply with our whole being and sensing into this movement of the breath. Knowing that this sensing into the breath and the movement of the breath is very deep and sacred in a way, listening is to this moment of experience. Resting back and receiving the sensations of the breathing. Listening into the experience of this moment with our whole being, our whole body. And listening into the heart. So what's here in the heart now? Giving our whole attention to what might be in the heart. Softly, gently. Just holding this heart with great care. Offering yourself a wish for whatever it is that would support you right now. Offering yourself a kind touch of support if that feels supportive. And listening into the mental state, what's happening here. Busy mind or calm mind. Just listening to what's happening with care, attention, kindness. Might know the content of the thoughts in the mind or just have a sense of the mental state. Does the mind feel spacious or closer in? Just listening with our whole attention, our whole presence. And then sensing back into the body and the breath. How can we breathe in a way that is pleasant right now? Offering ourselves this inner offering of ease, gentleness, a little bit of sweetness in finding a pleasant way to breathe. Offering ourselves this gift. And checking in to see if there's any part of our experience where there's any sense of calm or quiet or stillness. And whether there's any sense of pleasantness there in that calmness, perhaps in the way the hands are laying in the lap or the sense of the feet on the ground, the resting back of the whole body. Any sense of calmness and pleasantness there. Any quiet, soft kind of joy in this pleasantness or calmness. And so resting in the body and the breath, the sensations, and from time to time noticing if there's any sense of calming or any sense of quiet, and any pleasantness in there. And then letting yourself come back to the breath and the body with this sense of stillness and calmness. When the mind goes thinking, it'll come back. And when it does, we can welcome it back into the stillness, back into the pleasantness of just sitting calmly. This deep listening is a gift that we offer ourselves, a healing gift in a way. And as we listen deeply into places of calm or stillness, and places of pleasantness or quiet joy, we can help them grow simply through our deep listening. And so sensing now into the body, sitting and breathing. And let this be a place of resting for you. As we end our meditation and can receive Bob's reflections into this place of deep listening.
Thank you, Jeannie. It's a privilege for me to share the reflections this evening with two such talented people as Jeannie and Andrea. So I hope my little offering will be useful to at least some people. When Carol and I meditate, we usually meditate just before breakfast every day. And we often read some Dharma article just to get us warmed up for the sit. And not too long ago, in one of the articles we were reading, I came across this statement that said that in Buddhism, there's an equation that says expectations equal suffering. And about a week later, as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight, I thought, who said that? I must look that up to find out, where did I read that? And I looked and I couldn't find it. So being this is the internet age, of course, I Googled who said expectations equal suffering. I would have get a shorter list if I had said who didn't say it, because it's a very long list. This is obviously not something that's unique to the Buddhism, to the Buddhist perspective on life. Even William Shakespeare said, expectations is the root of all heartache. And I'm sure if I went back further in the list, I'd find a few Greek writers or philosophers who said something similar to that. And the reason that this was sticking with me was that we often hear that this season can be a very challenging time for some people. And in this particular year, we're facing new forms of challenge as a result of COVID-19. And so that got me asking, so how can our practice help us get through this season, which sometimes is difficult for many of us? One of the factors that's especially strong at this time is the abundance of expectations that we all have, and the importance that we attach to them being met. You know, we might have hopes for healing relationships, for receiving that special gift that we've wanted all year, some desires for a family get-together, anticipation of some very special meals, and so on. And for some reason, we seem to endow these expectations at this time of the year with a level of dependency on the outcome that is particularly heavy. So remember that the Buddha taught us in the second noble truth that suffering is the result of grasping or expectation or aversion, wanting things to be a particular way or being able to avoid things that we don't want to experience. So I really think that this plays out in our Western materialistic world at this time of the year. We put great importance on our expectations for this season. And if they're not met, we really suffer. So I invite each of you right now, think of a time when an expectation which you held strongly did not come to pass. Do you remember how you suffered? And can you think of anything that would have helped you avoid the suffering, or at least lessen the suffering, even though that expectation wasn't met? As the Buddha told us in the first noble truth, we don't have to look very far to see suffering in ourselves, in our friends and families, and in the world at large. Suffering is constantly at hand. However, it's one thing to be mindful of suffering. It's quite another thing to let it gnaw away at us, to be overwhelmed by it. Our practice gives us some tools to avoid being overwhelmed by suffering at any time, but maybe especially at this season when we're very vulnerable to that particular issue in our lives. So first, by being mindful throughout the day, you can be aware that at some particular moment, we're creating or hanging on to an expectation for something to happen. You know, we can name it. We can name it. Oh, there's an expectation being born or carried around here. Second, am I falling into the trap of making the fulfillment of this expectation the condition for my life being satisfactory? That's a big one. You know, my life will only be okay if I get that new car. I will only be healthy if I have a new relationship, and on and on. So that's a trap. Do I need this wish to be fulfilled to be authentically me? I think that's a good thing to explore. So instead of dwelling on the expectation, practice looking for the simple joys that also abound in life. Name them as they arise. Let them roll around in your consciousness and feel the absence of needing anything else to feel complete. You know, as a senior, one of the things that I frequently say to myself, it's got to be enough. I've done enough. It's got to be enough. I don't need any more. It's got to be enough. Of course, there are some forms of suffering that are not easy to deal with. Serious illness, loss of loved ones, financial insecurity, to name a few. They are very powerful burdens. At the least, try to meet them with compassion for the ones directly affected, especially yourself, ourselves. Also be ready to name the expectation that you might have that you can fix someone else's suffering. While there might be something you can do for them to help, there are always limits to our own capacity. And naming that expectation of thinking I can fix somebody else's problem, just naming that can help to ease the burden. So I hope that's useful. Thank you for this. And may you be free from suffering from unfulfilled expectations at any time of the year, but particularly for the things that you thought were going to be under the tree and didn't show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I was inspired to share poems related to solstice and the darkness. There was quite a few lovely events on Monday that I kind of dipped into, and then, of course, with the help of Google, found all sorts of other resources to go with that as well. So this time of around solstice is celebrated in many different traditions. Some people may have watched the sunrise at Stonehenge for the solstice, or some people just finished celebrating Hanukkah. We've been lighting the Advent calendar, my parents, every day in the course of the last over the 4 months or 4 weeks, I should say, and having the gradual light growing, and other sorts of rituals as well. So there's a poem by Susan Cooper called "The Shortest Day" that goes to this idea of why we get together and how we celebrate. And so the shortest day came and the year died. And everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight this shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And so do we here, now, this year, and every year. Welcome, Yule. Of course, this year things are going to be a little bit different. Many of us aren't going to be able to celebrate together with family in the same ways that we would usually do so. And so for me, this is an invitation to maybe allow a little bit of the stillness and silence to be an opportunity to turn inwards and to see what's there. So there's a poem called by Patricia Fargnoli, I'm sorry if I say her name wrong, called Winter Grace. If you have seen the snow under the lamppost, piled up like a white beaver hat on the picnic table, or somewhere slowly falling into the brook to be swallowed by water, then you have seen beauty and know it for its transience. And if you have gone out in the snow for only the pleasure of walking barely protected from the galaxies, the flakes settling on your parka like the dust from just born stars, the cold waking you as if from sleeping, then you can understand how, more often than not, truth is found in silence. How the natural world comes to you if you go out to meet it. Its icy ditches filled with dead weeds, its vacant birdhouses, and dens full of the sleeping. But this is the slowed down season, held fast by darkness. And if no one comes to keep you company, then keep watch over your own solitude. In that stillness, you will learn with your whole body the significance of cold and the night, which is otherwise always eluding you. And so I'm just going to close with one more little poem from one of our favorite poets, Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer. On the solstice night, there was a poetry event where Rosemerry was one of the participants, and she mentioned the poem that Mary Oliver has written about why I wake early. And anyone who's been to Anglin Lake with me knows that that's a poem that I love to read at Anglin Lake when the sun is rising. And Rosemerry said, well, she's more of a night person. And so she wrote this poem just recently called Why I Stay Up Late. And it resonates with me as a night owl as well. So gently the darkness curls around the world, first dusky, then dim, then lushly black. So generous the way it thickly spreads the softest of songs until the silence silks the empty streets and velvets the vacant rooms. Even this riotous heart inclines towards quietude. And whatever part of me that knows something yawns, and the part of me who falls in love with mystery leans more easily into the ever unknown. And I meet the starry grand embrace, speck that I am, and marvel at my insignificance, and marvel at how enormous it is, this openness, this gratitude. And I guess I'll just finish with one last little thing from Wendell Berry that I like in this time of darkness. It's called To Know the Dark. To go into the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight and find that dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings. So thank you, friends. I hope that you find some fun in these reflections, and I'll post the links to these in the Facebook post later, and enjoy. Over to you, Jeannie.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to take a moment and let both Bob and Andrea's beautiful offerings just settle for a moment. I feel so full of richness and treasure after their reflections. Really appreciating Bob's looking directly in that way at the challenges and offering us ways of freeing the mind and the heart. Half of our practice is looking into the difficulty and understanding how to diminish it. And then Andrea's beautiful poems and offerings about cultivating joy, which is the other half of our practice. Cultivating the beauty, cultivating the wholesome qualities. And the deep listening that she brought in the beginning poems. This last weekend, I was teaching at IMS online with Bonnie Duran and Jeff Houses and Elder Ramona Peters, the first Indigenous weekend retreat at IMS. And one of the things that Elder Ramona said has really stayed with me. And that is that our practices, as Bob has said, these practices of bringing in how to meet challenges, and the practices that Andrew's brought in of how to cultivate joy and gratitude and awe and wonder. All of these things, Ramona said, are a part of our medicine bundle. And she talked about the difficult states. And when an expectation comes towards us that we can name, or when there's some challenging emotion or experience, she was saying that we can offer our medicine bundle to that experience. Our medicine bundle of compassion, our medicine bundle of kindness. And I've just been thinking ever since then of the immense medicine bundle that we carry. And that collectively we carry a medicine bundle. Just feeling into some of the practices that have been offered tonight. The practice of clear seeing that Bob was talking about. The practice of naming, noting, the practice of inquiry that Bob was inviting us into, to inquire into what thought patterns might be moving us. And the medicine that Andrea offered of listening deeply, of turning to quiet joy. I'm just going to name a whole bunch of medicine that we have, and I invite you, as I'm naming it, to feel into what is in your particular medicine bundle at this moment. What is your medicine bundle for this season? What's your medicine bundle over the next few days? What's your medicine bundle now? What are you offering to this moment now? What medicine bundle are you offering now? Are you offering your presence, your deep listening, your kindness, your care? What is in there now? So I'm going to name some of our practices that have we've been exploring tonight and over the many months we've been online. And just feel, what is your medicine right now? And then we'll make a collective medicine bundle tonight. And so we settled into sensing how to cultivate quiet joy tonight. Through simply paying attention to it, as we did in the meditation. Paying attention to places where there might be stillness, calmness, this power of mindfulness. We've been taking a look at the 7 factors, so the power of investigation, which is the second of the 7 factors of awakening. The third is energy, that sense of connection we have to the moment that can bring energy. And then the quiet joy that can come with that, which is the 4th factor. These are all innate in our own hearts. Calmness, which is the 5th factor, which just can rise naturally when we touch any kind of quiet joy. Concentration, equanimity, the equanimity of the mountain, sitting. We've looked at the hindrances over the last many months, understanding a little bit about how to work with the various hindrances, sensual desire, that wanting energy that Bob talked about tonight, aversion, which Bob also touched on, the hindrance of dullness or heaviness, sloth and torpor in the mind and the body, restlessness, doubt. We've got tools for working with these. How to notice how they're developed and how they can be abandoned. We've talked about the Eightfold Path, this path that we're all on together that has these 3 areas. The first one of sila, or ethical behavior, the harmonious living, which can be a great nourishment, a great joy for us. The practices of meditation, cultivating the mind and the heart, and the practices of wisdom. The wisdom practices of seeing where happiness really lies, not in the external conditions, but in this inner wellspring, the refuge of the Buddha in our hearts. We've settled into the 4 foundations, the foundation of the body, which we do every Wednesday, settling into this foundation of the body, and taking a look at the 2nd foundation of Vedana, that moment of being triggered, wanting or pushing away, and how paying attention to that can be so helpful so that we're not carried away by it unconsciously. The 3rd foundation of looking at mind states, knowing the underlying kind of attitude in the mind. Is there grasping or aversion? And then the 4th foundation, which is the hindrances and the 7 factors of awakening. We've taken a look at the Brahma Viharas, the heart qualities of metta, kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. We've taken a look at forgiveness. We've settled into the refuges. We've had meditations on the elements. We've practiced in Sangha. And we've practiced kind of looking at confidence. What is it that you have confidence in? What do you know is supportive for you? So, what is in your medicine bundle right now? Let's find one thing that's in your medicine bundle. And for those who wish to offer that in the chat, we'll offer our collective medicine bundle today. And just as people are writing their medicine, that which supports you in the chat, and just rest in that medicine for yourself right now as people are offering. So friends, I'm going to read some of these. And just let them add to your medicine bundle so that we have a collective sense of our medicine as a community. Kindness, tenderness, and care. Stillness in community. Tenderness. Compassion. Patience. Patience. Community. Nature. Meditation. Walking. Increasing awareness. Compassion. Quiet joy in connection. And so friends, this is our collective medicine. And I'm going to pass it to Bob now. These words can support Bob as he dedicates the merit of our practice.
Jeanne, the metaphor of the medicine bundle is a particularly attractive and powerful one. And so tonight, perhaps that's a new idea for most of us. And so let's all try to be aware of, first of all, that we have this medicine bundle. Let's be aware that it can be helpful to us and to others. And that continuing to be comforted by the support that that notion gives us, that we're not alone, that we have supports that maybe we've forgotten about or don't give enough credit to. So as we close this evening, may we all try to be aware of the gifts that we have to support ourselves and to support others. May we all work, may we all be hoping that all beings will find peace and security in this time. May all beings be happy under the circumstances in which they find themselves. May all beings be healthy and balanced and may all beings experience joy, ease, and peace. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so much. Let's all show our candles, those of us who have them, as a way of empowering that dedication, sending our light and our medicine out. Thank you, everybody.